What's on, guys? Welcome to our brand new video today. So we're going to be talking about Rory's birth story. Now, it's been a little over 2 weeks since he was born, and we want to tell you this story while it's still quite fresh in our minds.
Yeah, so I woke up on the 27th of January at about 4:30 in the morning with some, I'd say they're quite mild contractions, but they were harsh enough that I couldn't sleep anymore. I had about 3 or so while I was still in the bed, and I decided just to get up. It was a bit impossible to stay in the bed, really. I just needed to be moving. I felt much better when I was up and about, and to be honest, I was a bit excited. You get very excited in that moment. I was like, oh my god, I'm having a baby. So I got up. They were around 7 minutes-ish apart at that point, so nothing too exciting, but close enough together that I thought, this is happening now. So I came downstairs for 2 hours probably before you woke up, and just sort of sat through them, timing them, but nothing too stressful. I didn't want to get too attached to timing them that early into it. It had just been silly. Tried watching some telly and distracting myself from everything. You woke up at around 6.
Yeah, I feel like you had sort of been waiting for that point as well for like a good couple of weeks, so...
Yeah, so I was already 5 days overdue at that point. So I'd sort of been waiting for about 2 weeks for any sign of anything, because up till then I had no signs. I had no Braxton Hicks, I had any extra pain to what I had. I wasn't walking any differently. I just thought it was never going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, it did seem to take forever, to be fair, but...
So you woke up at 6.
Yeah.
Came downstairs. They hadn't really got any closer together. They were about 6, stayed about 6-7 minutes apart. So I just sort of was trying to chill out. Yeah,
went through the day then, really, didn't we? And
yeah, went on the yoga ball a little bit, was bouncing on the ball. Tried to eat as much as I could. Thought maybe I'd get some sleep, but that didn't ever really happen.
Realistic.
No. Well, I rung the midwife at 11, didn't I? Because they were about 5 to 6 minutes apart, which is what everyone told me was when you meant to ring them. So I rang them, and they said, well, nothing's really happening, just chill out at home, unless they get to about 3 to 4 minutes apart. Lasted nearly a minute, which they were lasting 45 seconds already, but they just weren't that close together.
No.
So that was fine. I just carried on with the rest of the day. Just kept trying to distract myself, stop everyone asking so many questions. Because at that point we'd already told everyone that stuff had started to happen. Yeah,
I set up a WhatsApp group because I thought, realistically, it's probably like the easiest way to keep everyone informed without having to, send multiple messages every time. Just keep it simple, add everyone to the group, and then no one was left out then. Everyone was asking us questions, being like, has anything happened, and we sort of went through the whole day really like that. We got to about... It's just sort of in limbo, wasn't it, really? Yeah, massively. We got to about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Yeah. And we thought, they've stayed the exact same for the whole day, and everyone was like, go for a walk, it'll speed things up. So we went for a walk, we took the dogs out with us, and I sort of waddled around the block as such with them, trying to get through and see if we could get anything going. And they did, while we were walking, they did speed up. They were every sort of 4 minutes apart, and I was like, oh, here we go. Something's really going to start now. But we got home after the little walk and they slowed down massively. So they were then every sort of 11 to 12 minutes apart, and I was like, oh, maybe this wasn't like the start. Maybe this was just false labour and it was going to be another couple of days. I wasn't sure. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Just sort of sat here for a bit. Did we have tea then? And then we decided to go for another walk after tea. Yeah, so I thought I'd just get some food in me. And I was quite fidgety anyway, because I was bored of being sat and being in pain. Yeah, I just wanted to be up and moving. So we went for another walk, a bit of a longer walk this time, just the 2 of us. Really stomped about a bit. Yeah. Tried to get things going again, because I was like, well, they've slowed down. So we went for another walk. They sped up again while we were walking, and I was like, oh, here we go. Maybe I was wrong, maybe we're getting there now. And then we got home again from that walk, and they slowed down again. So they were every sort of 13 minutes apart, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go to bed, try and get some sleep, because I'd been up since 4:30 in the morning.
So I went to bed at about 8 o'clock. It was quite early.
Yeah.
You went into the gym.
Me and Tom did a Zoom workout together, and I think I was down there for maybe like 3/4 an hour at the most. Came back up, I think I was in the kitchen making myself a drink, and then obviously I think it was 8:45.
Yeah, I was in the bed. I tried to go to sleep. I had my big cozy dressing gown jumper on, my pyjamas was all nice and tucked up, and they were only coming every 10-13 minutes or so. So I was like, oh, maybe I can get a bit of sleep in between them, get my energy back up in case it does start happening properly in the next few days, because I sort of assumed that's what was going to happen. So I got in the bed, put on some videos, tried to fall asleep, had my eyes shut for maybe 2 contractions. I was just trying to ignore them, really.
Yeah, as much as you can.
Yeah, and then on the 3rd contraction I was like, oh, I feel a lot of pressure, something's definitely happening. And then there was a pop and I was like, oh, here we go. And then my waters broke pretty much all over the bed. So I ran to the toilet, and luckily it was almost perfect timing to when you'd just come up from, back up from the gym, and I could hear you in the kitchen, and I was like, Robin, my waters have just broken. And then I was like, oh, this is really happening now. You can tell, you just know, once your waters have gone, you've got 24 hours before they're going to induce you. We rang the midwife back to say my waters are broken, I need to come in. They said to give it an hour to see if my contractions sped up or not. I'd still have to come in to make sure it was my waters and not anything else, just in case. Everything got a bit more intense almost immediately, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
They were every sort of 4 minutes from the minute my waters broke. So and they were much stronger than they were before. So I sort of was trying to walk through them and breathe through them, and I was sort of walking up and down the house really for the hour that we weren't allowed to go in for.
Yeah.
Get myself ready, just make sure everything was packed in the bags, because at that point I was like, we're not coming home now, this is it. We're going in, I'm having a baby. So we left it the hour. My mum came to pick up the dogs and take everyone and sort everything out, make sure we were all ready to go. And then we left for the hospital at 10.
Yeah.
Pretty much. We got there about 10 past.
Yeah.
And I had loads of contractions all the way until we got in the car, and then we sat down in the car.
And it slowed right down.
Yeah, I had like 2 in the 15-minute journey to get to the hospital. So I was like, oh, maybe I've just told them that this is happening and now it's not really happening. But then we got out of the car to walk from the car park to the unit that we were on, and they sped up again and they were really intense, and I was like, oh, maybe this is happening. Then we sat down when we got there for the examination, they slowed down again, and I was like, I don't know what's going on here.
It just seemed to be every time that you sat down.
Yeah, they slowed right down.
For some reason, I don't know why, but yeah, it was the walk into the hospital where it was only like 5 minutes and you had 3.
Yeah, so
pretty intense ones as well.
I don't really know what that was or why that was happening, but that's how it was going. We got there, they checked like what the fluid was. It was definitely my waters. They were 100% confident on that.
Yeah.
And then they said they were going to examine me. So they examined me at the hospital at about 10:15, sort of around there. And they said I was only 1 centimetre. It was still quite, like the cervix was still quite thick. It was still quite high up. So they basically were like, just go home. Your waters are broken, but nothing's really happening yet.
Yeah, so wait till it's progressed a little bit more and come back in, basically.
Yeah, it might be a couple of hours, it might be a day. If nothing happens by tomorrow at 9 o'clock, when like 24 hours after my water broke, they would induce me. So we drove home then, which was terrible, because in my head we were staying and that was it. So I had to go home again, which was
yeah, you were
horrible.
A little bit gutted, weren't you, really?
Yeah, but we got home. I thought, fine, we'll just try and get some sleep. I had the TENS machine on by this point on my back to try and just ease the pain a little bit. So I got in the bed, thought I'll try and get some sleep, and that never really happened at all.
No.
You fell asleep straight away.
Yeah, I think I had at least a good like couple hours, if not 3 hours sleep.
Yeah, you were quite happily sleeping.
Yeah.
I sort of left you to it. I was sat there on the bed with my TENS machine on my back, falling asleep, sat up. I was sat cross-legged on the end of the bed, just sort of like this. And then I'd wake back up every time I had a contraction. So I never really slept. I just sort of was like dozing off, and then would get a contraction every sort of 3 or 4 minutes. And at that point, they were painful. they were not comfortable to sit through. I had to really breathe through them. So I was sort of breathing in for 4 seconds, out for 8 seconds as best as I could for the whole time, and I sat there for maybe 2.5 hours.
Yeah, till
just
I
doing
woke
that.
up.
I sort of I tried every time I'd look, it was sort of 1:45, an hour. So I'd wait and be like, right, I can make it the 15 minutes to an hour, then I'll wake him up to ring them. And I managed that for quite a while, so for 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need, even if I just go in for some pain relief, was my initial thought. I was like, I need to go in, it's happening, I'm in pain. So I woke you up and said, can you ring them? Because I couldn't even ring them to talk, because I couldn't talk through my contractions. By that point I was just breathing.
Yeah, bearing in mind when Chloe woke me up, she was like just shaking. It was like uncontrollable shakes. Obviously, like the adrenaline was running. It was just like I'd never seen anything like that before. It was a little bit weird, really, like to me anyway. So at that point, I obviously knew something was wrong, and like things were happening, and I had to ring them, and they said get in for 3 o'clock basically. So
yeah, they basically told us to come straight back in, didn't they? So we
Yeah.
got ourselves up, ready. Luckily the bags were still in the car, we didn't bother taking them out again. So we just got ourselves up, got dressed, and got straight in the car and went. So we got in there at about 3:15, I'd say.
yeah,
So went straight into a room, which was actually really nice.
it was lovely.
Big bed and a chair for you. There was chairs over and a pool. I thought it was lovely. It was they had the radio on. Like, it was
Probably like the most comfortable you can be in that situation.
Yeah, and yet all I did was stand up and lean on the radiator.
Yeah, until they said like, right, let's
Until they
get you in the
examined
bed,
me. Yeah.
get you examined, in which time they found that you were 5 centimetres then.
Yeah, so I'd gone from 1 centimetre to 5 centimetres in about 3 hours from the time that I left the hospital the first time to coming back, which I was really happy with, because I was like, if I'm in this much pain and nothing's happened, I'm going to be really upset. So I was happy to find out it was 5 centimetres. They sort of said, we'll get the pool running for you, because I said I'd like to use a pool, whether it was for the birth or just to see whether I liked it, see if it helped with the pain or anything. So they got the pool running, and I managed to get in there about probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock, not really sure exactly what time.
Yeah.
And that was a nice relief, actually. I was still in pain, definitely still in pain, but when I think back on it, it did help. It definitely helped. I felt more relaxed.
You just managed it so well as well though, like you're breathing, because they tell you to breathe in for 4 seconds, out for 8, and that just like seemed to fixate you on, or the fact that you were fixated on doing that.
Yeah.
It just sort of, I wouldn't have said it made it easier, but I don't know, you just kept pushing through. It was like,
I think it helped me not to tense up so much through the contractions, and because if you're breathing quicker, naturally your body just tenses, whereas I was trying to be slow and controlled. And obviously the pool helps with that anyway, because the pool was relaxing everything, and it's so deep it comes pretty much to your shoulders, that everywhere under that is relaxed.
Yeah.
And you can cope with it a lot better, and it was so big you can find a comfortable position for you. So I ended up sort of kneeling down in there with my head rested on the side for most of it, which I definitely felt the next day.
Yeah, a bruise on your forehead.
Yeah, from where I was just leaning on the side so much, but I was sort of looking down at the water. Definitely started to get into my own little world at that point, I think, was probably when that started, because I sort of blocked everyone else out. I didn't even really look at you. Didn't look at the midwives even when they were checking me. So they come in every 15 minutes to check you, check your temperature, check the baby's heartbeat, check your blood pressure, and by that point I couldn't even tell you what they looked like because I stopped looking at them. No,
you just sort of like got into a groove, didn't you? And just stayed in there.
Yeah, because
just powering through.
In my birth plan I said I didn't really want any pain relief. I said I'd try the gas and air, which I did. So it was when I was in the water I started trying the gas and air. I didn't use it very much, especially to start with. I didn't use it really at all. I didn't like it.
You didn't even really use it in between most of the time. You were just breathing through it, and then it got, I think as it got like a bit more intense into the pushing phase, then you sort of started using it again a little bit, but
yeah, the midwives sort of told me, because I started being like, this is painful, and they were like, use the gas and air, and I was like, I don't like it, and they said just keep using it. So I did later on. So I sort of was in the pool for probably 3 hours.
Yeah, I think it was about 6:30 must have been when you finally gave in and had the codeine tablet. But I mean, that was all she had, was like the gas and air, the codeine tablet eventually, but
No, I
considering
think I left it a bit too late to have the codeine tablet as well. I sort of was like at the point of no return before I even thought about having the codeine tablets. By the time they gave it to me, I don't really think I had enough time to kick in before it got really intense.
Yeah.
So I had that about 6:30.
Yeah.
And then stayed in my own little land for a while, head down on the pool, was breathing through everything, and then I was like, I think I need to push.
Yeah.
So it was about 7 o'clock, I was like, I can feel it now, I need to push. So I told you, didn't I? Because at that point I looked up for the first time in about half an hour since I had the tablet, which I barely looked up for. I literally looked up, took the glass and the tablet, just went, gave it back, and then looked back down again.
Yeah.
And back to my own world.
So now I had to go ring the little buzzer thing.
Yeah. Because there was no midwives in the room. They'd left for a bit, didn't they?
Yeah. And then they were like, well, if you feel like you need to push, then that's probably what you need to do. So
yeah. Because especially it was weird because it wasn't like I felt the urge to push. It was almost like my body was already pushing. I could feel everything was doing it. I wasn't telling it to do anything. I wasn't forcing it. It was just happening. My body sort of took over me and I disappeared from the world at this point. I don't really remember a lot. As they say, you go into your labour land. I was firmly in a labour land
well and
somewhere.
truly there.
I have no recollection of anything probably from this point onwards.
No.
Or very little. This is where you sort of take over, because I know bits in and out. I've sort of like dipped in and out of reality, but really I don't remember a lot from here.
Yeah. From 7 till about 20 past, we were, you know, Chloe was just pushing every contraction. Things were progressing a little bit further every time. Obviously they come over, they do checks, and once you're pushing they check you like every 5 minutes, I think it was. I think it was anyway, and they would come check the heart rate.
Yeah, check baby's heart rate.
check the vital signs of the baby basically. So yeah, we did that all the way through till 20 past 7. On the final push then, or the final push in the pool, his heart rate dropped, so they basically told us to get out at that point, which was hard enough for you anyway.
Well, that was terrible. I'd been in the same position for probably about 3.5, 4 hours at that point. In the pool, I'd got comfortable, I was good to go, and then they were like, you need to get out. So I had to try and get out in pain, out of a pool, and the pools aren't easy to get in and out of.
No, it's quite a step.
Yeah, there's not really a step in and a step out. You sort of have to hoik yourself, sit on the edge and swivel around to get out.
Yeah.
Which when you're wet and in pain,
it was not good.
Was not very easy. So I had to get from there to the bed, which was, I don't know, it wasn't very far. It was like 10 minutes away. Yeah,
but it was still. We got onto the bed then, and I think it was 2 pushes after that, when they discovered that he was actually coming down breech. So he was effectively coming down the cervix in a wedge shape. So his bum was down and his legs were up, but tucked into his chest. So
yeah, so he wasn't normal breech either. He wasn't bum down and legs completely folded in half. He was knees bent, so he was tucked into sort of like a tuck position. His knees were up by his chest, but his feet were also down. So he was very much in the most awkward way he could be. And he was also, what they said was, when you're breech, you come bum down, and his knees would have been facing upwards, but he was the wrong way as well. So he was facing bum up, which is what probably caused us the most issues. Yeah.
So after that, then obviously they discovered he was breech, and they pushed the emergency button, and then within seconds the room is just filled with people. We were on the changeover of the shift, so they had the night staff in and the people who were starting then the next day. So we literally had like 20 people in the room, and yeah, it was insane, like how quickly you thought you were going to have this baby in the pool. You were going to be holding your baby within a couple of seconds to then having to go through this whole
having 20 people in the room
next bit. Yeah,
because all I remember from that is I remember getting out of the pool. It's hard to forget that it was hard work. And I remember them being like, okay, so I carried on pushing through whatever my body was telling me to do, and then I remember them saying, you're going to meet lots of people now, and turning around, because they made me turn around, and just the room was full. There were so many people in there, It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening now? And they sort of, then there was a doctor in there.
Yeah.
And the doctor sort of took over at that point.
Yeah,
the midwife took a step back.
Yeah, and then he was effectively trying to pull Rory out, which was probably one of the hardest things to watch on the whole experience. It was, yeah, I won't go into too much detail, but it was pretty rough. So once they knew that they weren't going to get him out,
yeah, they basically said that because of the way he was, because he was bum up rather than bum down, which would have been preferable for being Breech, his head would get stuck on the coming around the birth canal, so he was sort of getting jammed here on his chin. So they couldn't get him out, and they weren't allowed. They can't use forceps or anything in that situation because they're specifically for a head. So they couldn't use any of the special equipment or do an episiotomy or anything because he was Breech. So they either had to pull him out with their hands or do what they did.
Yeah. After that, then we're rushed down the hallway to theatre, and I think they gave it one more try. They tried to turn Rory inside so that his head then wouldn't get stuck in the canal.
Yeah, so when we got in there, the doctor said, we're going to give it one more go. I was like, okay, I don't really want to cut me open. I'm fine with it now. I'm at peace with this fact. It's again, they said, no, come on, we're going to give it one more go. I was like, okay. So they got me to push. He tried to turn him inside of me, which was probably the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. I constantly was like, ow, 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 no, 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 I can't do this. I was holding on to random people's hands. I couldn't tell you who they were. Midwives, doctors, men, women, I've got no idea. But I was definitely holding on to people's hands, being like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then they were like, no, this isn't working. We can't get him to turn around. We're going to put you to sleep. You're having a C-section. I was like, okay. So from that point, it all went very, very quickly. There was cannulas put into my hands, all sorts. I was like, okay, this is happening. Oxygen mask on, and then all of a sudden they're like, right, injection, you'll be going to sleep. And that's the last thing I remember.
Yeah.
For you, obviously, it was a bit different because you were coming into theatre and then you were coming out of theatre. And
they told me when they were going to give it one more try, they were like, oh, we'll get you some scrubs, so scrub up, you can go in. So I scrubbed up in about 10 seconds. My shoes were flying everywhere. Ran into the theatre room then, and then no sooner did I get in there, they were like, yeah, right, we'll get out now because we're going to have to cut her open. I was like, okay. So yeah, then I had to go into a room opposite, which was probably the longest. I think it was only like 10 minutes, but it was probably the longest 10 minutes I've ever experienced in my life. Just waiting for someone to come in and tell you like everything's all right was probably one of the hardest things. But I can't tell you the relief when the doctor came in and said Rory's okay, Chloe's okay. I don't know. It's weird because I didn't really feel it at the time because I feel like there was so much adrenaline and like anxiety. I don't know, it sort of like numbed me to what was going on, I suppose. It didn't really hit me till like I was holding Rory and Chloe came in the room was when I got like really upset. Like I think at the time I sort of felt a bit angry as well, like the fact that we were sort of robbed of having a normal birth and being able to hold our baby when
we didn't get to see him
out.
sort of come out, and he didn't get to cut the cord.
No.
And I think the thing with that was we were told from about 34 weeks that he was head down.
Yeah.
And they were quite confident that he was head down. So we were like, okay, cool, everything's gone really well, he's head down, he's head down, he's head down. I had a sweep the day before I went into labour and they said we can feel the head. I was like, okay, great. We had when they checked me when we first got to the hospital, they said, yeah, we can feel his head, like quite happily. Everyone was confident he was head down. So in our minds, we were like, well,
this is going to be it, we're going to have the baby.
I was pushing and I was like, oh, his head's coming. Yeah. Everything's going smoothly, and that's not how it went.
No.
But yeah, so for you met him a lot quicker than I did.
Yeah, so I was allowed to go in and see him. He was on the resuscitator, so I was allowed to see him. I then saw Chloe and saw that she was alright. Obviously she was still asleep. And then I went back in the room then. I think I was waiting for 10 minutes or so. and it was about 8 o'clock when they brought Rory into me, and like, I just had him for like 3/4 of an hour.
Just by yourself?
Just by myself, where I was like not expecting. It was like a bit of a baptism of fire, but it was really nice. But at the same time, I was really disappointed that Chloe wasn't there and she didn't get to experience like holding her baby as soon as he'd come out. But I can't tell you how proud I was of Chloe. Like the thing like she went through to get to that point, to then have it taken away from her. Like I can't really imagine what that must have been like. But I mean, I suppose we are lucky now because we've got a healthy baby, and you know, that's all anyone wants really, isn't it? So
yeah, so he was born at 7:48.
Yeah, £7 2 3/4.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was probably one of the most dramatic birth stories at our hospital, because he pretty much came the whole way out. He was halfway out of me, and then got pulled back up through. Yeah, brought out the other way. So he had a very exciting, dramatic birth.
Yeah.
And almost everyone I spoke to, the midwives and things, were like, "That's never really happened."
No.
It's
So it's quite
a rare birth story. I was like, well, I guess that's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's happy, he's healthy.
And he's growing away nicely.
Yeah, he's a good little baby, so we're quite lucky really.
Yeah.
Hopefully if I have another baby it won't be so dramatic.
No.
Hopefully they won't be Breech, whether they're a boy or a girl, and we can have a nice normal birth.
Well, that would be lovely.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's pretty much how it went. That's the story of Rory, how he entered the world.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed the video, guys, if you want to give it a like, if you're new to the channel, if you want to subscribe, and yeah, we'll catch you next time.